This is the Insta360 X4 panoramic camera. And I would normally never waste my time doing a review of something that has already been reviewed to death. And believe me, there are more reviews of this thing on YouTube than there are stars in the night sky. But I feel like most of the reviews that are out there are really just sponsored fluff pieces. They're not particularly objective about the camera. And they also don't go into the level of technical detail that I like to see in a review. So instead of doing what I normally do, I'm not going to do a deep dive into this thing. I'm not going to talk about every single feature and all of its capabilities. Instead, I want to focus on mostly the things that other reviews have not covered. And I also want to talk about the technical details a little more. But first, what exactly is this thing? Well, it's a 360-degree camera that uses two fisheye lenses, one on the front, one on the back, to record this. So this is the image that's actually saved to the SD card by the camera. This is a dual fisheye recording. And by itself, this dual fisheye image is not particularly useful. So what you have to do is you have to run these videos and these photos through the Insta360 software to create this. This is an equirectangular image. This is what happens when the software stitches together both of those fisheye images and it creates an equirectangular image. And it's these equirectangular images that you will upload, well, pretty much to anywhere. YouTube, Facebook, Google Photos. Here's an example on Facebook. So I've uploaded a photo here. Anybody visiting this is free to just click on it and drag around and look around. And it works exactly the same way for YouTube. You upload your 360-degree equirectangular videos to YouTube and you will get a YouTube video that you can then interact with by just clicking and dragging and looking around. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the hardware itself. And well, the Insta360 X4 is really well built and really well made. I mean, the build quality is fantastic. The materials are really nice. It's waterproof. Everything about this just says quality. As a matter of fact, it's also got quite a bit of heft to it. The very first thing that I said when I pulled this out of the box was, wow, this thing's heavy. And the weight, while it does actually add to that quality feel, there are a couple of downsides to it being as heavy as it is. And the first one is that, well, if you have it attached to a invisible selfie stick like this, it ends up holding this thing out straight in front of you adds quite a bit of torque to your wrist. That camera weighs almost half a pound, but that half a pound at the end of a selfie stick, that turns into maybe, that feels like about 12 or more pounds to me on my wrist. Not a big deal for a short amount of time, but if you're out hiking for half an hour with this, which I have done, believe me, it becomes impossible. You cannot hold this straight out for very long. And if you're hiking and you want yourself in the shot, you generally want the camera between, say, eye level and waist level. And that means holding it out at about a 90-degree angle. But that's tough to do with this amount of weight at the end of the selfie stick. So I have found that sometimes it's best to just lean this thing over my shoulder, give it a break and get a behind the head view, or just hold it straight up and get some scenery shots every now and then, because it is tough holding this much weight straight out for a long amount of time. The other problem with it is that if you have the aluminum selfie stick like this, it will bend just a little bit. Not a whole lot, and it's usually only if it's straight out. If you've got it just straight out in front of you, there's just enough bend that the invisible selfie stick uninvisibilizes itself, and it may start to appear in some of your shots. Also, if you've got this thing mounted on a car or a bike or something where it's really going to be bouncing around, then it's definitely going to flex, in which case you probably want to invest in the carbon fiber version. This one is extremely rigid. So the carbon fiber, it's called the Action Selfie Stick. It does not flex at all. This thing will take the weight, no problem. But that's about the only thing good going for this one. The problem with the carbon fiber version is that, one, it actually overall weighs more than the aluminum one. It does not compact down as small as the aluminum one, and it does not extend as far as the aluminum one. So the butts are aligned and you can see that this one is quite a bit shorter than the other one. So the single most challenging thing about owning one of these kinds of cameras is protecting the lenses. You know, unlike a normal camera where the lens barrel itself protects the lens, there's no lens barrel on these. The lenses are just protruding right out. And they're on both sides, so it's not like you can just lay this thing down. You have to really, really be careful with this, because if you even just barely touch this lens onto something and it scratches it, you're done. That basically just ruined the camera right there. So you've got to be so careful with these things. And to deal with this issue, Insta360 has come out with these. So these are little lens guards that basically bayonet onto here. You just kind of find the right point, which is always the challenging part, and then, come on, yeah, there we go. And then with some effort, they twist on and they stay pretty well. And there's one for each side, and the camera comes with both of these. There are two versions of the lens guard. The ones that it comes with are made out of polycarbonate, and these are just the standard lens guards. But you can also get what they call the premium lens guards, and they're tempered glass that is supposedly a lot stronger than the polycarbonate and more scratch resistant. There's a little bit of a problem though. For starters, the premium ones cost about $35, and these are only about $20 to replace. If you damage one of these, no big deal. But there are some other issues. So the other issue, and by the way, I have not actually bought the premium ones myself because it sounds like these are the better ones to have. But from what people have been saying, the glass ones appear to attract a lot more dust. And these have to be spotless when you're using them, because if there is any dust on these whatsoever, you'll see it when the sun hits it. The other thing about the glass ones is that they apparently suffer from more internal reflections, and people have complained that, you know, basically you get more glare with the glass ones, the premium glass ones, than you do with the cheaper polycarbonate ones. And finally, the third issue is that the premium ones stick out quite a bit more than these polycarbonate ones. So they bulge out a little bit more. It just means there's more of a chance of you damaging them. So I've been using my camera with these polycarbonate ones on pretty much all the time. And what I have learned is that if you are shooting on an overcast day or in an environment where there are no bright point sources of light, like the sun or bright light bulbs, then you almost never even notice that they're on. They pretty much become invisible, so you get the security of having them on without really having any image degradation. But the problem then becomes if you are using these on a bright sunny day or in an environment with lots of bright light bulbs, you do tend to notice that they're on, because like I say, any amount of dust on this, any smudge, and just the material itself, the refractions and the glare from it, you'll see these. It's important to remember that these lens guards are not lens caps. These are optical elements. You need to protect them just like you would the actual lenses. So you still can't lean this on a table. You still can't let it just bang around. You do have to be very careful not to scratch these. They're replaceable, yes, but you still want to protect them. To deal with this, they actually do make an actual lens cap. This is the Insta360 lens cap for the X4. It's made out of silicone, and it just slips on like that. Voila. Now everything is protected. I can lay this down. I can do whatever I want with it. I can put it in my pocket and I do not have to worry. This lens cap is about $6 on Amazon. And why this thing does not come standard with a $500 camera is a bit mind-boggling to me. I mean, if I bought a $500 Canon lens, it would come with a lens cap. So why this doesn't come with this, I don't know. But it should be the very first accessory that you buy when you buy your camera. Now, one thing to note about it is that when you take it on and off, it does make a little bit of contact with the lens guards. Not a lot, but it does make contact. So you need to check the inside of this before you slip it on, make sure no sand or anything else gets in there that's going to rub funny. And also, this is another argument for not getting the premium lens guards, because remember, the premium lens guards bulge out a lot more than the standard ones. When I put this on the standard, it's not making contact with the lens guard once it's on. There's an air gap in between here. With the premium lens guards, I don't know. I have not tested it because I don't own a pair of these myself, but I would guess that this is touching the premium lens guards when you get them on. So one more reason, just stick with the polycarbonates. They're just better overall. The last hardware topic I want to briefly discuss is the image sensor. Well, actually the image sensors, because there's two of them in here, one for each lens. And unfortunately, the X4 uses the exact same image sensor from the previous model, the X3. It is the same half-inch 48 megapixel quad Bayer sensor, and this sensor is mediocre. I'm going to talk more about image quality later in this review, but for now, suffice to say that I think it's very important that you temper your expectations for what you are going to get out of this camera. You have to remember that this is a consumer-grade action camera. This is not a pro high-end panorama rig by any means. And if you keep that in mind, I think you're going to be really, really happy with what this thing can do. Now, it does have terrible low light performance at 8K. But if you have enough light, and I'm talking about a lot of light, it actually does create videos with pretty decent image quality, usable for what most people are going to do. Remember, most people will be watching these things on their phones, tiny little screen, it's going to look fantastic. And also, if you upload these things to, say, Facebook or YouTube, the image quality is going to be so degraded anyway that it's really not going to matter a whole lot. These sample videos here have been upscaled to 4K. Now, the original video was shot at 8K, but by the time I reframed it in the Insta360 Studio app, it crops it down to somewhere in the range of about 2.5K. So this is really a 2.5K image that you're looking at, and it's just being upscaled to 4K, but still, it looks pretty good. However, take a look at this. This is some darker footage that I shot on a morning hike. It was not dark out by any means. It certainly wasn't super bright out. It was just kind of morning lighting. And in this, you can see that there's a lot of noise. I mean, there's quite a bit of noise, especially in the shadows here. And this is where the 8K kind of fails. But, like I say, if you look at the regular footage that was shot in brighter conditions, it does look a whole lot better. Now let's talk about the software. And I want to start by talking about the firmware that is on the camera itself. The firmware on here is great. It's very responsive, it's intuitive, and it pretty much works like every other action camera these days, whether it's a DJI or a GoPro. They all kind of function similarly. You swipe down, you got your settings, 2 pages of settings here. If you swipe to the right, then you've got all of the recordings that are on the SD card. You can preview all of your 360-degree photos and videos. It'll let you interactively look around like you would expect. If you swipe to the left, you have your exposure settings and also your color settings, so you can do auto or you can do manual exposure. And you've also got vivid, standard, and flat color profiles to choose from. If you swipe up, now I'm in video mode, so it's showing me all the different video settings, but it shows the video resolution, the frame rates that you have available. And if you tap the bottom left corner, the little camera icon, this brings up your shooting modes, and this is where all the cool stuff is. So you can obviously select from video or photo, but you've also got HDR photos, HDR videos, you've got time lapses, star lapses. I mean, it does just a ton of different things. It's really, really cool and really, really powerful. This is the stop recording button. I have to be careful what I say because this thing also has voice commands and hand gestures, because you have to remember that when this thing is on the end of a long selfie stick, you can't reach that button. So what they've done is they've done these voice and hand gesture things, and they work really well. They work so well that I'm not even going to tell you what the voice commands are, or it will start this thing. But the hand gestures work really well too, and I'm going to put the camera way over here and show you. If I do this, this will start and stop the recording. I have to be careful about saying that. If I do the peace sign, that will cause it to do a photo. Have to be careful about what I say there too. But anyway, that's how it works, and it works really, really well. The only problem with the voice commands, though, is that if it is windy out, the microphones seem to have a hard time telling what you're saying. So I find that I use the hand gestures about 95% of the time, and they work almost every single time. One other thing, if we go into settings, there is a lens guard setting here. It's important to note that I think some people get a little bit confused about what this actually does. You have to remember that a lot of the settings on here don't actually change how the thing records the movies or the photos, because remember, it's a side-by-side dual fisheye image. It just comes off the sensor, it goes into that, and then it stitches it later in the Insta360 software. It has to know what lens guard, if any, you have on in order to stitch it correctly, because these are optical elements and they do change how the light refracts. But this setting is not critical, because all this is a hint. It's metadata that is saved to the file to tell the stitcher later which guards you had on. But you can always change that later in the stitcher. So how do you actually stitch all those photos and those videos together? Well, you've got to use the Insta360 Mobile App or the Insta360 Studio desktop application. Let's start with the mobile app. The mobile app is really good. It connects via Wi-Fi to your camera, which I am right now, and it does so much. So for starters, it has a built-in remote control. So here's the live view off of the camera as it is right now. I can pretty much do everything I could in here, that I could do on the camera. So I can change all the settings, I can get it to, start any of the recordings and the photos, and it does everything that I could do. And it's great for applications like when you have your camera mounted to a car and there's no way to do hand gestures, there's no way to do voice control. You've got to use a remote control like this. So it works fantastically, but that is just a fraction of what this app does. Although that is about 95% of what I use it for. But here's the cool stuff. So if I go to Album, okay, here's a list of all of the videos that are on the camera, videos and photos. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this one here. And I want to show you something interesting. So first of all, it has a built-in editor. And I'm going to show more about the editor later when we talk about the desktop software, but there's one thing that the mobile app does that the desktop software doesn't, and that is AI generation of your videos. Automatic editing is really what it is. Now, I've already had this generate because this takes several minutes to do, but basically you are telling the software to be your editor, and this is what it spat out for this clip. It added music. It's doing the tracking, it's doing all the cuts, it's doing everything. So it decided to swing the camera around and look at me. It's tracking me, it's doing all this. I had to do nothing. And this is fantastic if you just want to spit something out that's fun and cool really easily without having to manually, deal with it. Now, if you did want to manually deal with it, there's Pro Mode over here, and this is a full-on keyframe editor. So I can go in and set up keyframes like I want. I've already got a few set up here, and it also has auto tracking features. So let's just say right here, I wanted to track myself. Now it automatically identifies certain things like people, pets, and cars, and it puts this little green dot on it. If I press the little green box, it will start tracking me. And this way I don't have to worry about manually setting keyframes or anything. It does a really good job. I'll just stop it here and then we'll play that back. It's really, really smooth. It works so well. And you can do this from the desktop software as well. But like I say, there's a lot more to the editor than I want to discuss right now because we're on a tiny little iPhone screen. And that's why I don't use the app for a whole lot other than remote control. If I'm out in the field and I just want to get a photo off of the camera and share it with somebody, then it's great for that kind of thing. But I think for the full-on video editing, either you need an iPad with a bigger screen, or really it's best to use the desktop software. And this is the Insta360 Studio desktop application. And it's very, very similar to the mobile application. I just prefer to use this because I find it a whole lot easier to use on a big screen rather than a tiny little iPhone screen, and having a mouse is pretty helpful as well. But it's very similar, and here is the clip editor. So I've got this one video loaded up, And as you can see, I've got all the keyframes set, and I've got motion tracking, these little yellow zones here where it's tracking me. I've got all this pretty much set up the same way I would do on the mobile app, and it works the same way. I just don't have quite as many features. There's no beautification feature for my face, which was available in the mobile app. And the other thing is it also still has a project editor. So I can go up here and let's just say new project, make a new one. Let's drag a few clips over, this one, I don't know, and this one, 3 clips. And this works the same as the mobile one. We can add text. Up here we have a bunch of these kind of pre-made text things, and we can edit them and do whatever we want with them. This exists on mobile. We also have a huge music library to choose from to add music, also available on mobile. And we also have transitions. So say in between these 2 clips, I want to do a left shift. Okay, add it in. I'm going to make this left shift go for 2 seconds. So now, when I'm playing back, it does that little transition. One glitch with transitions, and this is kind of a biggie, is that you can't add transitions to the beginning and end. So there's a fade to black transition. I can add it in the middle, but if I try to add it to the end of my movie, it gives me an error. So that's a little bit annoying. But back and back out, I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about stitching. So here's our clip. Over here is the lens guard setting. I said, at the beginning of this video that it's a good idea to correctly set the lens guard setting on the camera itself so that it will know later. And here's where it shows up. But if you screwed up and you had the wrong setting on your camera, it's no big deal because you can just go in here and change it again to whatever it's supposed to be. Now down below, here are some important options to be aware of. There are 3 methods for stitching these images together: dynamic stitching, optical flow stitching, and AI stitching. Long story short, AI stitching works the best for me most of the time. However, it annoyingly always defaults to optical flow stitching. It doesn't matter what the last stitching setting was, any new clip is always going to go to optical flow. So I've got to come into every single clip and change it back to AI. Now take a look at my elbow here, for example. You see this little stitching error right here. If I hit AI, it's better. Sometimes it's a lot better. Let's see if we can go forward. Let's try a different frame. Yeah, I see the cuff of my shirt's a little whacked. AI cleans it up a little bit better. Dynamic stitching looks terrible. So most of the time, AI stitching is the best one to use. It's not always perfect. There's certainly still a slight glitch right there, but I find that it is the best one to use. All right, moving on to this next tab. So, all right. There's this thing called Color Plus. It boosts the saturation and does some other things to the image. But there's one major problem with this software, and that is that what you are seeing is not what it really looks like. It looks very saturated right now. The green is very green. My dog is very, I don't know, orange or gold. I look a little bit orange. The sky, well, it's not as blue as it would normally be, but these rocks look hyper saturated. This is not what the actual video looks like. And if I export this video, it's not going to look like this. If I export this and look at it in QuickTime Player, Final Cut Pro, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere, it's going to look a lot less saturated. And that means you just don't know what your video looks like until you've exported it and looked at it somewhere else. So this Color Plus feature, it's pointless because you don't know how much to set it to because you don't know what it actually looks like. It's always wrong in here. So anyway, moving on. Clarity Plus, I do not recommend that. It kind of adds contrast and does weird stuff. The videos, at least in my experience, just look worse with Clarity Plus. Motion ND is kind of interesting. It adds fake motion blur. To me, it looks fake. I don't ever use it. Enough said. Okay. Now, another thing, about the project editor is that it only has this one mode, which is the manual mode, where you have to set all the keyframes and all the transitions and add the music and everything yourself. There is no AI mode in the desktop version of this, so it will not automatically generate those really cool videos for you. You have to do it by hand, and that's too bad. I really wish they had the AI feature here, because even though it's not anything I would really use hardly ever, it's just kind of cool every now and then. At least I show people. It's kind of a cool thing. Photos. Now, we've been talking a lot about videos, but this thing also stitches together your photos. When the camera shoots photos, you have several different ways of having it save it. I like to tell it to save the PureShot version, which is the INSP file right here. Or you can tell it to save the RAW version, which is the DNG version. Whoops, sorry about that. I almost always prefer to work with the RAW version because I have so much more control over the highlights and the shadows and the colors. And it just looks, if you put in the effort, the RAW version will always look more correct. That being said, PureShot isn't bad. I mean, PureShot actually, if you don't care about accuracy, it does a good job bringing out details and shadows and dealing with highlights. However, it does make the clouds look really weird. It always makes the clouds look very bracketed, HDR'd. I don't like what it does to clouds, but it does do a good job with pretty much everything else. That being said, I prefer the DNG files, but here's a problem. In order for anything, meaning Facebook, YouTube, Google Photos, whatever, to recognize that this is a 360 image and treat it as a 360 image, meaning letting the user control around and spin around like we are here, it has to have some metadata attached. That metadata is called GPANO. It's a tag that is in the files. If I go to the INSP file and it's stitched it here. I mean, it's stitched it, and I need to output the stitched equirectangular image. I say export the image. It will save a JPEG file, and that JPEG file will have the GPANO metadata in it. So it's ready to be uploaded to Facebook, and it'll just work. However, the DNG files, there's a bug where it is not saving the GPANO metadata to the DNG files that it stitches together and exports. Photoshop, Camera Raw, needs to know that this is a 360 panorama because it has something called Edge Aware. Edge Aware is when you apply color modifications or any filters to this raw image, it has to do it across the boundaries, across the left to right edge. If it is not edge aware, if that metadata is missing, then when you do this, your final panorama is going to have a very noticeable seam running down where that left to right boundary is. So there's a bug in this thing. It is not including the proper metadata. That means that you have to manually add that metadata back in before you can work with it. So you'll export your DNG file from here, and then you have to use something called EXIF Tools. EXIF Tools is a command line thing that you can download for free off the internet. You're going to have to just Google how to use it, but long story short is it will add the GPANO metadata into the file so that Photoshop Camera Raw will work correctly. Finally, I do want to talk about the image quality one more time. At the beginning of the video, I said that the image sensor was mediocre and that this thing had terrible low light performance. And that's true, but it's not the whole picture. I mean, first of all, there's some physics involved here, optical physics. You've got two fisheye images that it's trying to create an entire 360 view from. Most professional panorama rigs are going to have multiple cameras or at least shoot photos from many, many different angles to stitch together a very high quality panorama. Two fisheye lenses barely cuts it. The center of each fisheye image is always going to be the sharpest, and as you go towards the periphery, you get more chromatic aberration, a lot more distortion, and just less to work with out there. And the software has to stitch those together. It's warping these already warped fisheye images into an equirectangular image. So there's a lot of pixel pushing and pulling that goes on, and the results are just always going to be less sharp than a pro rig with more angles. So, like I said, temper your expectations for what image quality you can get out of this, because if you do things right, you really can get some decent quality. I mean, I think in some of the sample footage I showed, it looked pretty good. And what it takes to get good quality is A, a lot of light, and B, don't zoom in too far. Don't crop in when you're editing. If you maintain a wide field of view, then you will never notice how bad the pixels look close up. You're not going to see the noise, you're not going to see all the warping errors. You're not going to notice that in a wide field of view, but you will notice it the more narrow your field of view gets. So those are my tips right there. But anyway, overall, I'm very happy with this device. It's easy to use. The software is great, even though it's got some flaws. The build quality is fantastic. And this just allows me to do things that I couldn't do with my other action cameras or my DSLRs. It's just a really handy extra tool to have in the toolbox. So hopefully this review was helpful to you. I do recommend that you do check out some of those other sponsored fluff reviews that I mentioned earlier, because even though they're not very objective reviews, they do have a lot of good information in them about the details of all of the shooting modes and using the software and stuff. You can learn a lot from them, even though they're paid for. So hopefully this has been useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, thank you for watching.